Hello and welcome to the Big 12 Mafia Show. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown. With me as a co-host and becoming a great friend of mine, the one, the only, Moen. How we doing, Moen?
Doing good. How about yourself, Nate?
Doing very well. Thank you for asking. Wild Ute will be joining us in a little bit. He's on a side project right now. We're going to talk about some viewership numbers and where schools maybe will end up based on those viewership numbers. That's a project he's working on right now, and I hope to talk about it a little bit later in the show. Before we get started, let's do some business. First of all, I want to thank everybody for being here on a Tuesday night. We are in the merge, or not in the merge, we're in the middle of doing some reorganization. There's going to be some changes that we have within the show itself, other shows that we've got going on. For instance, this is the Big 12 Mafia show. Moen show goes on as Moen After Dark, but they're both Big 12 Mafia productions. We just want to be very clear that everybody knows we're all on the same team. If you see a different title pop up, don't worry about it. Just know that this is the place where all the content will be, and we're excited to really expand what we've been doing. The first 8 months of this was a giant, crazy experiment. We're hoping to turn the page and doing some more stuff that's more official looking, maybe more cleaner cut, stuff that will make it easier for you to digest our content. Moen, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, we're going to do a lot of great things for the members and the viewers in the chat. I think stick around. You guys are going to be really excited to see some of the things we have planned.
And we're excited to bring it to you. We've spent quite a bit of time planning it. We're going to continue to do that, and maybe we'll roll these things out in small pieces rather than one big turn the page moment. But regardless, we want you to know that we're doing it so that we can bring more information and entertainment for you guys. You're why we do it, and we very much value you. Um, while you're here, please subscribe to the show. Consider being a paying member. That's something that we're going to be bringing more content for you on. Being paying members, their comments are always given first. If we have a contest between members and non-member comments, we're always going to try to take the member comments. So I just want to make sure everybody knows about that. Also, please subscribe and on YouTube, and then turn on your notifications. We won't say much more about that except for notifications is a big deal. That way you know when the show's going. Let's get some hellos and highs out there and out to the world so that we know who's actually watching right now. Glenn Lumen in the Philippines says, "Good morning from the warm and sunny Philippines. We are truly in the Wild West times when when will NIL money go to high school players to secure their commitment?" Thoughts?
It already has.
Right.
There's already the yeah. There's already high school players getting paid.
Absolutely there are. And Glenn, that'll continue to change. It is frustrating for people who are just thinking, let's just play the games. But it is what it is. We sort of have to go with the flow and try to do what's best for our different schools. BR says, let's rock and roll. Good to see you, BR. I know you're working on your membership. It's good to see you green when you're on there and your little symbol. I missed that, and I look forward to having you back on there for that. Daniel Gygax is in the house. He says, Wild Ute is going to be happy hearing the Big 12 Media Days might be moving to Las Vegas. You have any comments or questions about that?
Well, he wants everything in Las Vegas.
Well,
So
we're
as
both on
long
the
as it's
same page. We can get down there in
right,
5 hours.
as
So,
long as it's not Kansas City over and over again.
yeah, I think there's reasons why basketball might stay in Kansas City,
Yeah.
but yeah, there's no reason why they couldn't move other administrative things to Vegas. Certainly, everything's set up there. Thank you, Daniel, for your comment. He also says, "Evening, everyone." Kyle Visser's in here. He says, "Ahoy, sailors!" Casting for Chrome, one of our paying members, gives us a thumbs up. It's good to see you here, Casting. You stay out of trouble, all right? We don't want to lose track of you guys as the season's over. We start going through these bowl games and we get into the off season. We're not going to let you disappear. We're going to keep you on our front foot, and we very much care about you guys being here. David Floyd says Big 12 needs to offer Notre Dame, Clemson, Miami, Duke, Pitt, and Louisville. Moen.
But sure, they can offer them. Most of those aren't going to accept, though. Um, Notre Dame kind of has their own way in their own conference,
Right, right.
everything they want. So, uh,
And let's talk about that for a second because there's a lot of ideas going around now on social media, in some call-in shows and other things that the ACC is doomed to explode any second, and that all these changes are going to happen right now. And I just want to caution everybody: just dial it back a little bit. You can talk about realignment all you want, but there won't be much movement between now and the end of the season. The only time you might start to see anything come out is after the college football playoff ends, unless it's Florida State. And then Florida State might come in and they might make a big bombshell announcement during the national championship game or something. But everybody else is on a slow roll. Okay, so it's exciting to talk about realignment. It's our number one thing, but that doesn't mean that's the only thing that matters right now. Let's see here. Kyle Visser also says, Moen, good to see you have hair that goes with the hairdo. I
yeah,
had that car, except for it was 2 years newer. It was an '86 V8 with a 5-speed. It was so awesome. Let's see here. Mr. Monkey says, what the heck are those?
those are
Do you know what
monkeys.
those symbols are? They're monkeys. Good to have you here, Monkey. It's good to see you. Joey Z says, giddy up. Daniel Gygax again says, Vegas is an 8-hour drive for me. Yeah, it's 5 from here in Utah. Let's see here. Caden's dad says, is Immaculate joining you guys later? I don't think so. Immaculate's work schedule has changed quite a bit. So the days he's going to be able to come on are going to vary from week to week. I do believe he's scheduled to be on tomorrow night.
Yes.
Moen,
Yep.
correct me if I'm wrong. Okay.
Yep. We're going to do a Moan After Dark tomorrow night.
Okay. So Moen after dark tomorrow night. Do you have a time?
We'll call it 8.
8. So 8 Eastern tomorrow. We'll just start talking about that. These shows are going to bleed into each other. We're going to try to get them more scheduled so you know when we're on. You can schedule your work around us, and then everything will go much easier for people to know when we're on TV or on YouTube. See a couple more comments here. Mr. Monkey says Moen, I like the idea of enhancing your look with a background.
I always try. I try to keep you guys entertained and guessing.
I love it. I cannot get enough of all the stuff you do. You're very entertaining. And one last comment here from Caden's dad. He says, Moen, will the big take Clemson in your opinion,
If available.
if available? So yeah, before we start getting into stories and some other things, let me run a couple things by everybody. First of all, I want to invite everybody, and let me bring this screen up so everybody can see what I'm talking about. I'm inviting everybody who's watching the show tonight or watching the show tomorrow to join our Big 12 Mafia Bowl Pick'em. It's free to participate. It's on ESPN. I'm going to copy in the comment or the link in the comment section. All you have to do is click on that link, use your ESPN, the free ESPN login, and join us. Right now, we're sitting on, let's take a quick look, a lot of people. I haven't done a head count, but there's probably 30 people here at least. So we want to invite everybody to participate. Please come and it'll be fun. It'll be something we talk about in the next few weeks. We'll gloat about the victories we get, and at the same time, we will catcall those who aren't very good at it. Anything else you want to say about that, Moan?
Yeah, just remember, guys, it's a confidence bowl pick 'em. So make sure you assign your confidence points. If you go through there and just click on the winners and losers, you're just basically saying the first game is your most confident, the last game is your least confident. So
Right.
make sure you assign those points accordingly.
Also, you can just do a search on ESPN for Big 12 Mafia Bowl Pick'em. You don't have to have the link, and there's no password. Just do that search, and it should pop up. I believe we're the only one using that name. In fact, I'm positive we are. So we invite everybody who's watching to do that with us. Pretty much the cutoff is going to be tomorrow, just because I think the first bowl game might be Thursday.
I
It's
believe it
Thursday
is.
or
It's the
Friday.
16th, I believe, is the first bowl game.
Oh, okay. So we're next week. I'm not sure if there's a cutoff date or not. I just don't want anybody to miss out.
Yeah, I would
You're all
say get it
invited.
in by tomorrow, guys. If we can get it in
There
by
we go.
tomorrow, we're golden.
All right, awesome. Okay, before we get into news, let's really quick review a few of the things that we've heard in the last couple days about realignment. If you've been paying attention to Greg's peek around the corner, he's been talking about realignment again, spinning up again because of what happened with Florida State, all the energy with that, and then this idea that some schools don't want to get left behind. The one thing everybody needs to understand is these schools can ask to get in. They can always go and put their hand up and say, "We'd love to join your conference," but nothing changes unless they get an invite.
Yeah, that's 100% right. And remember, nobody's going to accept them while they're a member of another conference. They have to
Right.
declare that they're leaving the conference.
And what that means is there's a lot of work that has to happen before any of that can proceed. FSU is an outlier because of what happened to them with the bowl or the college football playoff. They might do something out of rage just to piss people off, but everybody else, North Carolina, Miami, Clemson, all those schools, they're all in the same boat. And it's going to take a while for these things to unwind. I keep telling people 2026. I know you'll see news that's reported it might happen in a month, might happen in 2 months. I just caution everybody and say that there's no rush from these leagues. They're not in a rush to make any changes. The only one that you might say is in a rush is the Big 12, but that's just because they're waiting for what falls out after the ACC has trouble. So, is there anything else you want to mention about that, Mullen, before we move on?
Yeah, it's the ACC is not really going to explode and everybody's going to be available all at once. This is going to be a death by a thousand cuts. Um, Sort of like we saw with the Pac-12, where Colorado left, then Arizona left, then Oregon and Washington left. Prior to that, all USC and UCLA left. So
That's right.
that's probably what you're going to see. You're going to see Florida State leave. Then you'll see Clemson leave. Then you'll see UNC leave. And then at that point, the ACC is going to have to do something to not only backfill, but try to protect their brand as much as they can.
That's absolutely right. And we have a new entry just under the gun here, Sergeant Pickles. He's one of our paying members. How we doing there, Pickles? Good to see you. He says, "Evening all. How we doing?" So, all right, let's move on to some news items. Let me bring this back up in here so everybody can see it. Take Pickle's comment off. So this is a tweet that I found on Twitter. Sorry, I found this on Twitter yesterday, and I believe they retweeted it out again today. There's this idea that the state of Florida is suing the College Football Playoff Committee, and I'm going to do two things. First of all, I'm going to put the link for this tweet so we're totally transparent. I don't want to take credit. That's Blue Blood Bias. That's their link. If you want to look at that on Twitter, and then there's a link that I got this one actually from Immaculate, and this is the source material I believe that's on ESPN, and I'll put that there as well. Basically, we'll just read the headlines and then we can go from there. The state of Florida is officially suing the College Football Playoff Committee. The Attorney General says we're launching an investigation to examine if the committee was involved in any anti-competitive conduct and in its unprecedented decision to exclude Florida State University. Do you have any comments about that before I move down the tweet?
No, keep going.
Okay.
That's
The subpoena sent off to the College Football Playoff Committee demands all communications related to the exclusion with ESPN and the Southeastern Conference, documents showing member compensation and individual vote tallies from that infamous Sunday morning. The AG also accused the committee of costing Florida State University and the ACC millions of dollars. That we know is true. In some cases, it's over $300 million. The committee has 1 month to turn over all these documents before this antitrust investigation is escalated. This is a very big moment. That's what it says. Everybody needs to understand what an antitrust um, challenge is. That's going to probably be a federal suit. If they're going to hold the College Football Playoff Committee against some rules that are cross state, That's probably going to have to be something that's interstate commerce and probably will follow into a federal lawsuit. Anything you want to add to that, Moen?
Yeah, this is. I wouldn't expect too much to come from this, simply because it's a state government suing over another organization. This is just billable hours. This is just political points for the AG out of Florida. Um, I don't look for this to do anything fantastic. If anything, it might get Florida State the money that they should be getting for playing in the conference football playoff.
Yeah.
Uh, Maybe get them that money that they deserve because they do. They're owed like 6 to 8 million, I believe, um, on the low end for just not being able to participate in those games.
Right, right. Yeah, that's just Florida State. That doesn't
Yeah,
include the ACC by
doesn't include
itself.
the ACC,
Yeah.
right?
Wild Ute has finally joined us. How you doing, Ute?
What's up?
Well,
Happy Tuesday.
it's happy Tuesday. So, welcome to the show. We've already got started. I went through the headlines. Right now, we're talking about this lawsuit in Florida State. The state of Florida is suing the College Football Playoff Committee. Did you have a chance to look this over? Have you heard of this lawsuit?
No, I've been dorking out on viewership numbers here that I'm going to outline for
Okay.
everybody, so let's just discuss it here.
Yeah, basically, they're suing and they're asking for all communications from that Sunday to find out who said what and how they made the decision to exclude Florida State. This is coming from the Attorney General of Florida, and they're the ones suing the College Football Playoff Committee. I'm letting you read that. I
Yeah.
wasn't going to read it again.
Wow. Okay.
So, what do you think about that by itself? Obviously, they're not going to get in the middle of the college football playoff games. Nothing's going to change this year for
Mm-hmm.
2023-24. But what does this possibly do to the future? What's it go like?
I think anytime you get the government involved, it just muddies things up here. And I don't think this really moves the needle on much. It just, what this actually, you know what this does? It actually gives more ammunition for a court case for FSU to make an argument to get out of the ACC. I think this is just more ammunition that they need.
Right.
I don't know if this is going to swing anything in a court case, but you better believe when the lawyers are getting all the information that they need to make and pitch a court case on why the ACC is unsustainable, this will be right there. This is going to be a relevant topic right here. So this is really what I would expect really come out as more support and evidence for something like a court case.
And they're not afraid. That's what I'm getting from this. They've already put $1 million into this investigation just to get started. It's going to go to tens of millions if they follow through with the lawsuit and they pursue it as an antitrust case.
Mm-hmm.
It could change, just like all the other lawsuits that are going on right now. It could change the way college football is legislated.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It looks like it.
Let's see here if there was any other pieces of this article that I wanted to bring out and show everybody. I can't think of anything else that we missed. Is there anything you want to say about it, Moen?
I think Philip brought up a great point. This is leading up to Florida fighting for sovereign immunity for Florida State University. So if Florida State leaves the ACC and the ACC decides to sue them, at that point, the state government of Florida, using sovereign immunity, could step in and say, hey, it's an extension of the state of Florida. Florida State University is. As a result, it has sovereign immunity. It didn't have the ability to enter into this deal with you, and the deal is no longer valid. So, if the AG's on this, don't be shocked if the legislature and the governor follow suit.
Very good. Let's get to a couple comments here. There's a good one from Sergeant Pickles. With the news from PATC that's happened today, I listened to it, that the SEC is strongly considering 4 teams. Does the big preemptively offer the best two to block them off? You're the one that's in one of these conferences, Moen. How do you see this part of the process being played out? I was I must admit, listening to Greg this afternoon, I was a bit surprised by not necessarily the information by itself, but the fact that these schools are now, going out of their way to promote the fact that they're being looked at.
Yeah, I think the UNC, NC State, Virginia Tech, Virginia. I don't know if we want to call it a block. Is certainly putting this out there. They're
Okay.
certainly trying to make it. This is uh, the most obvious selection for both conferences to come in here and take. The Big Ten's not going to take Virginia Tech. The Big
Right.
Ten's not going to take North Carolina State. Um, I shouldn't say they won't take North Carolina State. They could take North Carolina State just to get into North Carolina. But what the Big really wants is a foothold in Florida. And if they can get the biggest brand in Florida, which is Florida State, they would be happy with just that. So I'd imagine they're probably going to get Florida State. Clemson, I think they would take it if there's pushback from the presidents. Go ahead and get your drinks ready, guys. It'll be Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech, you're back on the Georgia Tech
The
train.
drinking game. Georgia Tech, the drinking game.
Take a sip.
Take a sip.
I'm telling you guys, Virginia Tech isn't getting in the SEC or the Big Ten.
So let's talk about that. That's the entree. Go ahead and dive into that.
You know what? There's somebody justify outside of just the handcuffs with the University of Virginia on why Virginia Tech qualifies to get into the Big Ten or the SEC conference. Show me something that would validate them, something exceptional, something above average that would evaluate. This isn't the Michael Vick Virginia Tech days, guys. This is the new era of Virginia Tech football. NC State falls in that same. Georgia Tech. These teams aren't getting into the SEC or the Big Ten. I don't care who says what. I don't care. That might be the truth today, but at the end of the day, that ain't happening, guys. There's no way it happening. There's no way to justify that. Financially, it makes no sense. Viewership-wise, it makes no sense. I just busted out some data. I was doing a little data research project that I was interested in today. And I was looking at some viewership figures over the last 3 years for some of these schools. There's no way these are Big Ten schools. These aren't Washington. These aren't Oregon. These aren't USC. They're not UCLA. These are average to below average viewership wise for even the Big 12 right now, what we're talking here.
Okay.
These schools do not qualify for the Big Ten or the SEC, and Virginia Tech is the absolute. I'm slobber knocked with what I'm just seeing here. I got to show you guys this.
Slobber knocked. I love
This
it.
is nuts because, like, in my mind's eye, I'm like, okay, like the Virginia Tech, Inter Sandman, great fan base, loyal fan base, good size stadium, Michael Vick, they almost won a title, and so I have
Right.
like this high view of Virginia Tech football. I do, but really, you guys, no one watches Virginia Tech. Nobody watches Virginia Tech football.
Are you going to show us the table?
Maybe. Here, one sec.
Well, I'd like to see it, so I wish you
Okay.
would.
Here we go. Okay. So let me share my screen here.
Let me get this off there. There you go. You should be okay.
All right.
Steven cautiously says, what do you think of Georgia Tech?
Mhm. You guys
All
see
right.
my screen?
There we go. Yep.
Okay. So what I did today, there was a lot of chatter going on because there is a really popular, article that goes out. This guy does Zach Miller. He does ratings. Every year he's done it for many years and everything. He's been cited many times, but he basically just breaks out what's your average rating per game that's televised. So yeah, this isn't perfect data because it's not going to grab any data that Utah playing on the Pac-12 network. And so there's a little bit of distortion in these figures and stuff, but by and large, if your school's on network TV, there's any type of measurement on Paulson. So if it's on ABC, Big Ten Network, ESPN, ESPN2, FS1, it's going to get tracked. Just not stuff that might be like on ESPN Plus or the Pac-12 Network or ACC Network anyway. So I think this is valuable information. I'm always intrigued. And he provides this annually. He came up with his 2023 numbers, and I was looking through those today. He breaks out, what's the average viewership per game for each program. Okay. So nothing new there, but what he also gives some historical data. I'm going to scroll through kind of quickly, guys. But he gets historical data back from 2022 and 2021 timeframes. So I was just kind of curious. So I broke out data from 2021, 2022, and 2023 on all the new Big 12 teams, on all the ACC expansion targets. So there's like 7 or 8 expansion targets that are realistic targets. Clemson is not a realistic target. And also on Wazoo and Oregon State, just to take a look see on what viewership we're seeing, compared to the Big 12 teams, and what looks like it's a fit viewership wise, because we know that viewership's massive because it speaks on fan bases and it's massively important for television contracts. So with all that data, I crunched all that data, I averaged the data up, and you can see here, I didn't make it look pretty yet. I can probably do a short video though. This would be a great short video. But here's a 3-year average from 2021 to 2023 for really 25 schools, 16 new Big 12 schools, and then Pitt, Georgia Tech, Miami, um, and all these expansion targets, as well as Wazoo, Oregon State. And you can see some things that are jumping out, like Colorado actually leads the pack because of the Deion Sanders effect,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They would have been one of the lowest on this without Deion, but they got
That's
such
right.
a bump that over the last 3 years, they're averaging 1.74 million viewers per game over the last 3 years. And again, if Deion wasn't considered and we were looking at 2021, 2022 numbers, it would be like 400,000.
Yeah.
It would have been horrible. But Deion really swung it that much. So they're the
Okay.
best. You can see this like the best viewed, the best product maybe, or the most exciting product or whatever, like out of all these teams. You go down the list, TCU makes sense. Over the last 30 years, they've had some good football teams. They made the CFP run, 1.5 million viewers over the last 3 years on average. Oklahoma State, 1.47. Had some good squads. University of Utah, 1.23. Iowa State had a good squad a couple of years ago that really drove this, 1.08, and so on. But what really jumped out to me is this. You see this? This VT right here?
Yeah.
That's Virginia Tech Hokies. Check this out. Okay. Over the last 3 years, what do you think their average viewership has been?
I don't know. 300,000.
370,000.
Wow.
That
Okay.
okay. So when you're looking at that, obviously, in just like this comparison again, the Big 12 and everyone here, I mean, that's way low, right? I mean, you're almost to the University of Houston level.
Right.
But like trying to say that you qualify for the Big Ten conference when you're just pulling in 370,000 viewers on average, that doesn't work. I mean, like Nolan, you know it, like the Big Ten network, they're pulling in like over, around like a million viewers in the Big Ten network. And
Right.
Michigan, like Virginia Tech is not a fit for the Big Ten or the SEC based on the fan base, based on viewership. I mean, of course they're going to get a little bit of a bump by playing a Big Ten team, but all these schools will get that same bump. And in fact, they'd get a bigger bump probably because they have bigger fan bases. But this tells me that the fan base is not what we think it is for Virginia Tech. It's not just 1 year data. This is 3 years of data. It's shocking to me. Virginia Tech could be that low. And also, hey, our buddies Pitt, 630,000 viewers on average per game. I mean, that's lower than your average Big 12 team. So really, Pitt is not as sexy as we think they are. Georgia
I
Tech's
think
right
I
there.
think they're attractive because of the rivalry with West Virginia. I think
Sure.
that's why they're valuable.
This tells me that people care about watching West Virginia more than Pitt. Maybe there is that multiplier effect. I mean, this includes one backyard brawl or 2 years of backyard brawl games too, over the last
Right.
couple of years. But we're not talking about. Okay, so what are the takeaways here? So the takeaways are Virginia Tech's shockingly low. TCU in Oklahoma State, University of Utah, Iowa State, BYU are above Miami.
Right.
That's shocking. You think Miami's this massive fan base and stuff, but they've been up and down. But also, like, I mean, these teams in a lot of ways are pretty similar in the middle. And like, even if the Big 12 goes and adds schools like a Virginia Tech and like an NC State, I'm not sure it's going to move the needle as much as I previously thought, based on
Very.
based on this.
We got a super chat here from Cleveland Rocks. Thank you very much, Cleveland. He's also one of our paying members. Good to have you here. It says a more likely scenario when FSU, Clemson, et cetera, leave will be the ACC attempting to backfill again with schools like Memphis, USF and Tulane. And if that was to happen, Cleveland Rocks, what does the value drop in the ACC itself? Because they're not going to pay top dollar to a conference that has Memphis, USF, Tulane, SMU. I mean, the value just drops out of the bottom. What do you guys want to say about that?
Let's. I again, my takeaways with like the graph and stuff. I just jumped back in to see the super chat here. I think that's pretty telling. And I'm going back to speaking again on the graph. Like we've talked to Bob Thompson enough times to know like what
Right.
drives viewership, and viewership is so important in conference realignment. It's your brand, number one. Your it factor, your brand,
Right.
rivalries, number two,
Yep.
storylines, meaning how good your team is. Like maybe if you've got something unique on your team, but your rankings would fall into that bucket too.
Right.
Those are three big drivers and everything. And like sometimes it is what it is. I mean, you can kind of excuse viewership numbers and stuff, but when you're taking more and more a larger sample size, it just is what it is. I mean, these schools that we're talking about, these ACC schools, fall right in line with the Big 12, like right in line.
Yeah.
Even Miami, which is shocking to me. Um, so I don't like. Yeah, the takeaway again on that is like adding these schools isn't going to move the needle financially up from like 31 million to 40
Right.
or 50 million, like I'd hoped.
Right.
You start looking at this, and if I'm a media executive and I'm crunching the number and I see this, I'm like, I'm not paying like significantly more on average for these schools to get brought in at all. So like honestly, like expansion, there's a lot of different reasons for it, survival and stuff, but it's not going to move the financial needle nearly as much as we thought. Expanding with anybody in this pocket.
Thank you very much, Cleveland Rocks. Appreciate your super chat. We really appreciate you. Can we get a clap for him, Mullen? Is that okay? So
I want to jump in here.
I was
real
just going to
quick.
invite you to. Yes,
Okay,
please.
thank you so much. You're leaving one part out of that though, Philip, in your equation. What about markets?
Sure.
Virginia. If the only way you can get into Virginia is taking Virginia Tech along with UVA, is the market more important to them than the brands necessarily? Same is true with UNC and NC State.
So, I mean, what I would respond to that, I would say historically, yes, but in the future, no. Because, like, I mean, when we're moving away and folks are having YouTube TV and Fubo and everything else, and not traditional Comcast, markets are kind of irrelevant. Like, I don't care if somebody's watching from Alaska or in Charlotte. I mean, in this new world. So that it's becoming less and less relevant. It used to be super significant, but it's becoming less relevant, and there's no way you could justify two teams at a payout of the Big 12 wanting to pay like 75, 80 million per school. I mean,
Well,
like,
they might not get that payout. That
Right.
might be part of the negotiation is they get a lower payout.
why, if you're the Big Ten, would you want to add Virginia Tech?
I don't think I don't think the Big Ten would. I think the SEC would. I think the
Why?
SEC would want to get into North Carolina and Virginia so badly
Okay.
to expand their footprint to stay the Southeastern Conference. They would take 4 teams from those 2 states to do it.
Here, they've been the most closed off conference, top to bottom. Why all of a sudden would they get expansive?
Because they want to increase their regional footprint. Although people are moving to things like Fubu and YouTube TV and all those things, those
Right.
still have carriage fees. I use YouTube TV, and the money I give to YouTube does go to the Big Ten network. The money I give to YouTube TV also goes to the SEC network and the ACC network. I don't watch the SEC network or ACC network, but the money out of my bank account still goes to them. So I don't think it's necessarily about the population in that region or the people watching in that region. I think it's just about expanding your footprint to say, hey, we're the Southeastern Conference. We have every state that was in the Confederacy. Um, because that would seal the deal for them. That would be the Southeast Conference. They would have Virginia, they would have North Carolina, and then you go all the way over to Missouri and Texas. I mean,
As a
It's
finance guy, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say no matter how you shake, it's dilutive, meaning that it's going to take away your
it
payoff at
is
some point in the
dilutive.
future.
I think it's
It,
dilutive short term though. I think it's accretive long term. I think they want to look at the long term structure, and adding markets to them is important.
Here's a comment right on this point from Daniel Gygax. He says VPI Virginia Tech's issue was they were on the CW and ACCN, that's ACC network, which is underwritten by ESPN. A lot this last year. I think the highest watched game in the past 2 seasons was the West Virginia game last year. Obviously, not having access to those higher time slots has been a challenge, but why do we think that is going to get any better if they move to a different conference? Because
right?
you can only slice the day up so many ways and subdivide where games are played. And I don't
I
know.
like this comment, but I think that there's like this perception that networks don't know what they're doing. Networks do know what they're doing, and they're putting the best brands because they know what's going to drive viewership. So
Right.
Virginia Tech going on ACC network and the CW a lot is also telling.
That's
In
true.
addition to what we're seeing here, I mean, I'm telling you guys that Virginia Tech's not the brand you think it is, or I thought it was. Not even close. Like not even close.
Moen, you want to say anything about this comment? I've got another one I've got marked.
Yeah, I mean, part of it too is how good your program is. Virginia Tech has not been great the last
Not
few
since
years.
Beamer left. No.
Right.
Yeah.
They had some flashes after Beamer left, but they were very brief.
Right. Right.
They beat Ohio State, and then Ohio State won a national championship. So,
Let
I
me ask you. Sorry,
yeah,
go. I thought you were done.
I was gonna
Sorry.
say, I always have a spot in my heart for Virginia Tech. So I'm like Philip. I remember the 1990s. I remember Beamer ball, Michael
Sure.
Vick, Tyrod
Yeah.
Taylor.
Yeah.
Special teams winning every game.
Very good.
A game being won on a punt return touchdown or a
That's right.
blocked field goal or
Yeah.
something like that. So I have a soft spot for Virginia Tech, but I think if they had a better team, the numbers would improve.
Let me ask you this: Is Virginia Tech sort of? I hear Virginia Tech and North Carolina State are the other schools that might move into the Big 12 if they're not picked up somewhere else, right? They're on that short list to go to the Big 12. But are we adding more value to Virginia Tech wholly because we know West Virginia needs a travel partner out there? In other words, are we inflating what their value is just because we know how badly they would really help a conference like the Big 12?
I think that rather than that, and that might be a little of it, but like I think that's just a brand factor. Like I thought Virginia Tech was a big brand, like a solid brand,
Right.
and maybe they can become that again, but there's no factual evidence in recent history to suggest that.
Okay.
So I think that we have a misnomer on how good the brand is.
Very good. Really quick before I read this next comment, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, follow us all on Twitter, and then turn on your notifications so you know when our show is on. Subscribe on YouTube, Big 12 Mafia, and be a part of the family. We're going to stick around. We're not going anywhere. We're not a flash in the pan, and we are definitely more than just realignment talk. All right, this next comment was casting for Combe, who obviously is an Oregon State fan. He says, hot take, I don't think the present and past numbers matter as much as what could be possible for region based on population. Uh, what do you think about that?
So that's kind of like a forward-looking
It is.
assessment of based like population growth maybe. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that all kind of matters. It also matters like what kind of sports are in your market too. Like, I mean, if you're in LA market and there's a bunch of pro teams and everything, like how much excitement are you going to get even if you're good? That's hard to really put a number to. Really is like hard to quantify something like that, but like it's
Right.
something to take into consideration too. Um, but then on the other hand, like you got big you look at the University of Pittsburgh, you look at Miami, big markets and stuff, and they can't sell their stadiums.
Yeah. That's true.
USC can't sell them out. UCLA can't sell them out. So it's like it's not necessarily that simple. And like I think at the end of the day, it kind of all washes out where there's not much impact with that.
Moen, you want to add anything to
I
that,
I
or do you defer?
I disagree. I think that you have to look towards the future. Some of this is based on population and their demographics. A lot of snowbirds from the Big Ten go down south in the winter. It's Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, places like that. So, and those people have money, and those are the people the advertisers covet. They have money, they go out, they spend money, they still buy cable television. You're never going to get them away from it. The boomer generation, if you will. Um, but you're also going to have to look at the young people. North Carolina, I have a friend who moved to the Charlotte region, and it is just booming down there for young tech people to go down there and work. So, a lot of Big Ten alumni down there.
And like I think that we got to think about how nuanced this is too, because like from the TV network's perspective, I'm doing a 5 or 7 year deal, and all I care about is the 5 or 7 years.
That's right.
You
That's
better
right.
make me money. You better get viewership and everything. From a conference's standpoint, there's a longer term perspective, like the life of the conference.
Yep.
So there's two different perspectives, but which one has more weight? And like it seemingly the TV viewership and the pots of money they're bringing to the table seem to have more and more weight to me all the time on what drives decision. And who knows how long conference even last for. I mean, like the Big Ten and the SEC are king today, but if there's like disruption there, that might not even exist in 10 years. Like who knows, right?
I wouldn't rule anything out. I'll tell you that. Another comment here from Sergeant Pickles. Every in-depth analysis I've seen says that what network and time slot the game is on actually has a far bigger impact than what teams are playing. I'm not sure that's true, Pickles. We've talked about the balance between the teams and the ratings for those time slots. All summer we talked about it. All through the season we talked about it. I'm not sure that you could say if Ohio State is playing at 3 p.m. Eastern on a Saturday, that if they were playing at 8 p.m. Eastern the same day, their numbers would necessarily drop or go up. I think their opponent matters. Do you
Yeah,
guys agree with that? Disagree?
I do. I've heard this a lot, and I've seen some data on this too. And Pickles, I would mostly agree with that, but I think that fails to ask another question: why the networks put a team in that time slot. I mean, like seriously, it's easy to say, okay, if the University of Utah is playing in big noon, my numbers are going to be a lot better and stuff. But like the networks are not stupid; they're paying a lot of money to put Ohio State there because that's the brand. And
Right.
this is part. So they're making the decision on who's what. The networks are making the decision on what makes a brand, right? And so that question right there, while it's true, I don't think it looks at everything correctly. I think that you need to think about why teams are showing up in those time slots too.
Moen?
Yeah, you're going to have favoritism from your conference offices. That's, and your network partners. Your network partners are going to be driving who they want, where they want them. You're not going to get Ohio State on the Big Ten network 5 times a season. It's just not going to happen. They want that game. I mean, that's a big noon kickoff. That's either the CBS 3:30 game or the NBC primetime game.
Very fair. Let's see here. I'm just going through these comments. There's so many. It's been hard to keep up. Let's see here. Sergeant Pickles has another one here about Washington State has better TV numbers than a lot of teams you assume they wouldn't beat, but here we are. And that is true. Washington State draws great numbers. Do you want to speak to that, you?
So Washington State. Um,
Is an outlier, I think, are they?
I mean, Washington State is like a kind of middle of the pack for like the Big 12, based on like last 3 years, based on the stuff that I just showed you guys.
Right.
It's not like it's way out of bounds either way. So I think they're kind of average. They Washington State and Oregon State are right there next to each other. Last 3 years viewership, average viewership. So at Washington State, if you're including 2023 numbers, it's no better than Oregon State. It's actually worse than Oregon State on a
Yeah.
3 year average. So I mean, they're right in the middle of the pack. So there's more into play there than those guys.
You want to say anything about Washington State, Moen?
Yeah, I think the last few years, Washington State has been a bit of a giant killer, um, going back to Mike Leach's days. So I think that there's you've had these good teams, these Oregons, these Washingtons, these USCs in the Pac-12, and I think that draws a lot of viewership. People looking for David to slay Goliath. So, and I think the same is true of Oregon State.
Kyle Visser has a comment here. A&M would prefer to be curb stomped by OU, UT, LSU, and Bama than Purdue, Northwestern, Indiana, and Rutgers.
We'll see. I still
Yeah,
think at the end of this media deal, the SEC might have to fight to keep A&M.
I think that's fantastic. I love that. I love that. Well, let's move on to another news item that came out yesterday that in my mind's eye I had discussed with somebody, but now I can't remember who it was. So we're going to do it again just for everybody else that wasn't in my head last night when I thought I reviewed this. This is the story about Washington State and Oregon State suing. Actually, the reverse happened. The 10 teams want their money. And the way they want their money is in the past, and let me go to the top of this article in The Athletic. It says Oregon State and Washington State blocking Pac-12 revenue payments to departing schools. And that sounds like a catchy title, but it doesn't really encompass what is going on. I'm going to post a link here so everybody goes to it, The Athletic. You can read it yourself. But basically what this is not written into the contract. Okay, it's not written down. But for the last, I think it's since 2016, they have been doing quarterly payouts of the media money for the Pac-12. It wasn't a requirement. It wasn't in a law, or there's nothing that was official about it. It's just something they started to do. And now that Washington State and Oregon State are in charge of everything, they're saying, you know what? We still don't know who we owe what for. We're not going to let any money out until we make sure we got all the expenses taken care of. And so we're just not going to put out those payments. It would have amounted to about $6 million per school. What do you guys think about that, Moen and Ute?
Go ahead, Moen.
I think this is, again, another shot that doesn't need to be taken. These guys need to get together and figure out an amicable split. This is turning into a messy divorce, and spaghetti's on the wall, and the kids are crying. Let's stop. Let's stop this right now. This is ridiculous. However, my one thing taking away from this was the judge that originally ordered this thing had told them not to screw around, or he'd find them in their courtroom. I wonder if he's going to take this as you're screwing around by withholding money that's been distributed to conference members quarterly for the last 15 years.
Well, it hasn't been 15; it's been like 7.
Okay, but still,
But
it's an
it's
established.
not written in the context. It's not written
Sure,
down,
but
right?
it's an established rule. You set precedent.
What do you think?
I think this is absolutely foolishness right here. Absolutely foolishness. Like this is exactly what we're talking about. It's showing up right here, trying to. Come on, guys. Like, let's be honest. The Pac-12, we don't have a lot of money that goes around anyway. You guys know that and stuff. You can't take the whole pot of gold and everything and withhold it. Like,
Right.
what's the end game here? This is such a bad decision. Like, like, I know we got Oregon State, Wazoo fans, like, and folks and everything out there. Bad call. Like, what's the end game? What are you trying to do? This looks horrible. The narrative's horrible. I'm sorry, guys. Like, this ain't gonna work, and you're gonna be regretting this. Just give the University of Utah,
I
give
was
the
gonna
University of
say,
Utah the
let's be
money that we've
honest.
earned.
That's
Please
it.
don't
Okay.
try to steal our money, because
Let's
that's
talk
exactly
about
what
it.
you're doing.
Thank you very much for saying that out loud. I was going to make sure everybody knew Ute is a Utah fan. He wants his money for his school. So
Give me my
he's
money.
not, he is not just in the vanilla zone here. He actually has something to grind to try to get this taken care of and represent his school. So I don't have such a thing. I actually am more empathetic to Washington State, Oregon State, because I don't have a dog in the hunt. It's easier for me to do that. But I think they should pay the money if they know what all their expenses are. They still don't know how much money's owed to Comcast. They still don't know everything that's owed to the Holiday Bowl. That lawsuit hasn't been settled. There's 3 or 4 other things that they got money that's going to go out. If you were in charge of their purse strings, and you have to protect their interest, meaning those 2 schools, are you going to let them send money out that might not ever come back? because it's always easier to hang on to something than it is to sue to get something back.
I think it's like a short-term view. I think the long term that you needed to play that. Yeah, again, I just think that it's not going to work. I mean, like it's losing the narrative. It's going to lose the court case because it barks up exactly what Washington's attorney was saying was going to happen. They're going to withhold payments. They're not going to pay fairly for the performance on the field and everything. And it's not just Oregon State and Wazoo making money in the conference right now. It's the whole conference. So like, don't steal someone else's money. That's exactly what's going on right now. I think that they should go out and sue after the fact and not try to withhold money now. And I just think it's a bad long-term play for a short-term little power play going on.
Very fair. Sergeant Pickle says, Big 12 Mafia show, it was Wilner's, so take it as you will. But he implied today the P2 are withholding the money to potentially cover fallout from the NCAA lawsuit. So again, they're party to the lawsuit. That one, which one is it? It's not
House.
Yeah, that's the House lawsuit. That's right. Pac-12 at the time was sued, and that hasn't been settled yet. So, what do you think about this idea that they're not sending money out that they might not be able to get back later based on when that lawsuit is settled?
I think that it's convenient to do that and everything, and it's a good excuse to do that. But they're going to be trying to hold every single dollar that they can hold at the end of the day. And I would rather prefer money get distributed fairly as it's always been distributed, and then after the fact create a lawsuit. University of Utah, University of Arizona, they've got money in the coffers. If you sue them after the fact, that's the right way to go about this without just withholding their prorated pay right now. So I'm not a big fan of this at all, especially like given this what we're talking about. I know we're talking about like collectives with NIL and stuff. It's already hard enough to recruit and like pay staff and everything else. Just don't take money right now. We need every dime we can get at the University of Utah and elsewhere in the pack. So I don't like it.
Casting for Chrome says almost as bad as a 12 school saying not to take OSU and WSU, right?
When
Is that
so
the
so like
same?
okay, I want to like when are we playing like the high horse morality police here? Like I'm sorry that happened to Oregon State and Wazoo, but that's not the University of Utah's fault. We didn't put you in that situation. USC did that. And so like we shouldn't have to pay penance for that because we had to find somewhere because we were screwed too. Like so I mean I'm kind of sick of like the high horse morality thing. Just pay what we've earned on the field. And this stuff is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Moen, do you
Yeah,
want to add anything to that?
I want to say I think everybody agrees that Oregon State and Washington State got screwed over by this.
Yes.
They deserve to be in an autonomous conference. They do. They've earned that right. However, I think that this is a bad look for them. I think they had the public on their side.
That's true.
I think this little amount of, hey, we're going to withhold in case of, you guys can come to an agreement and just say, hey, look, if something happens with House, everybody here agrees that all 12 are on the hook for it and the revenue gets distributed.
Okay.
I think it's just, and Oregon State and Washington State have to look at this from the other point too, that they're still out there as a candidate for possibly the ACC, the All Coast Conference.
Yeah.
You don't want to have to put any bad look to your organization. Like I don't think it's necessary for them to do this. I think it's a bad look.
Here's a super chat from Tony Lawson, $2. Thank you very much, Tony. Says OSU and WSU should invest that money in NIL for, what is that, chipmunks?
I think that's supposed to be a beaver.
Beaver. Oh,
A beaver.
OSU and invest money in NIL for a beaver. I guess.
I guess.
Do you know what he's saying there?
Just invest that NIL money.
Invest it. Now there was another comment here that said, why don't they just put it in escrow? Why don't they do that, Ute?
I mean, if they put it in escrow and everything and they're not trying to withhold it, but like the narrative right now, everything suggests that it looks at the surface level that they're trying to keep the money, right? And not letting it go out and stuff. They're going to hold onto it for dear life. And I understand the plight. I understand if I was an Oregon State fan, I might feel differently, but I am on the other side of this, and I see it like on the other side that the University of Utah, Arizona, everybody else has made the money. It's not just Oregon State and Wazoo making the money for the performance, for the contract and stuff. We're still under contract. The contract is not ended. Do not take the money that is owed to each school. It's simple to me. I mean, like, are we making this more difficult? Like, I mean, like, what do you guys think? Like, is Bomber, what do you think about this?
I think it ought to go into escrow. I think that's the best idea I've heard about all of it.
So you
I
want to
think
put it
all
to
the money,
escrow
I would put
to
it
for how
there.
long?
Well, I mean, maybe until those things settled or it's adjudicated. That way nobody spends the money. Nobody can steal it. Doesn't disappear. One Friday night, it's no longer there.
I mean, like athletic, like the University of Utah, for example, we've got a budget that we work off of. You know, these are
Oh, I
universities, nonprofits,
understand.
and everything, and
No,
withholding
I get
money
it.
impacts jobs too, like at other universities. And
I agree
so
with you.
and
I'm
so
just trying to
there's
think of
collateral
what's the most
damage for
fair
doing
way
that.
to do it. What's the most fair way to do it?
Yeah, I
Because
agree. No, I think that's a great idea. Just escrow it so everybody knows that it's secured. Um, I think that's a fantastic idea. I don't know why they, but this is again goes back to it. Nobody wants to admit they're wrong. Everybody
exactly.
wants to win
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to give something. Sometimes you got to lose something, guys. This has been dragging on way too long. This mediation should have been over months ago. This is just the only people who are happy with this are the lawyers because they're getting all the billable hours.
Yeah,
Right.
right. Yeah. Blaze Barstow, one of our paying members, says OSU and WSU are making sure they have money to pay PAC debts. They don't know how much they need. And that's true. I just said that. We don't know how much money is going to have to go out at the end of the day. Stephen is the one I got the idea from. I just want to make sure I give him credit. Stephen said, put the funds in escrow. I think that's a great idea,
I
Stephen.
think a fair way would be we had a conversation with I forgot the guy's name. I thought he's from Washington State. About a
Oh,
month or two ago.
yeah. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I could
And
find his name.
he brought up the fact that a portion of the payout should go into escrow for
Right.
future liabilities, but not the whole thing. Like so
Right.
I wouldn't mind putting a couple million and stuff, but don't withhold everything. I mean, it looks like you're trying to hoard the money.
I definitely Matt Lovelace is his name,
Yeah,
and
Matt. So
yeah,
Matt,
and he's
so
a Washington State guy, and he brought that up.
so why can't like a solution be okay? If the distribution is supposed to be 6 million per quarter per school, why don't you put a million or two away into escrow and fund the rest and stuff so people can operate on their budgets? That seems like a reasonable way to go
Sure.
about it, but that's not exactly what's happening.
All three of us thought this was going to be settled in September,
Yeah.
and it wouldn't go past October, and here we are mid-December, and they're nowhere closer to having that done. So I'm shocked it's still out there. It's horrible, and there are people that are being impacted. Their jobs are impacted. Their livelihoods are on the line in some cases. I think that does make a difference. I really do. And definitely, I don't want to see people hurt. Kenneth Evans says there should be a debt alliance. Everybody else is making an alliance. Why not make a debt alliance? That'll go along with the Pac-12 alliance. Jeez, that's just that we shouldn't. The alliance should be taken out of lexicon. Anything with
Oh my
sports.
gosh.
I never want to see that word again. Let's see here. Blaze Barstow says, "What if the lawsuits settle for $1 billion, meaning the house and then the other, all that money?"
And we're talking about the NCAA suit here.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, it's just going to take the NCAA to go into bankruptcy.
yeah. I think so too.
If that happens too. So we're kind of getting to the place we're probably going to get anyway with the breakaway. Like
I would agree with
in
that.
the own governance and everything that's probably going to happen. So maybe that just lead to things sooner.
Will that be mandated? Do you guys think? Do you think there's gonna be a mandate by the government to put a third party entity together, post all these rulings to clean up the mess that was the NCAA and sort of restructure everything?
Like a new NCAA?
Yeah,
Yeah.
something. Yeah, but there's oversight, right? It's no longer just a freewheeling, check machine for people who like to travel.
I think there's going to have to be something like that. Maybe the largest conferences, can determine what that looks like.
Right.
But you have to factor in things like Title IX and how you comply with federal regulations, right? These
Yep.
are universities that get federal dollars, right? And so the government's always going to be tight and hand in hand with this and oversight. So you have to have some type of oversight.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here. Sergeant Pickles, another comment, says NCAA bankruptcy and is inevitable. They are clinging to what little power they have. Yeah. Nobody here is going to defend the NCAA. Not on this show that I know of. I don't know anybody that has ever done that.
And that Charlie Baker idea, still, that we talked about last week, the more I think
Right.
about that, the more I think how dumb that idea is. That's got to be the
Yeah,
worst
it
idea
is.
I've ever heard.
30,000 per student.
Per
And you have to,
student.
for every dollar you spend on men, you have to spend $1 on women.
Yeah, I
It's just
mean, like,
impossible. It's
that's not going to
impossible.
work. Like, that just, we've got to
He's trying
figure
to
out a
save his
way
job.
to make things equitable with the realization that, some sports drive revenue for everybody else. I don't know how
Yeah,
to do that, but that's what needs to be thought out stuff. And that solution and that proposal is just, it's not going to work for the reason you
right.
specified.
Cleveland Rock says, "You right or wrong, it's called a vendetta.
Sure.
Washington State and Oregon State are left high and dry. They are fighting for their own self-interest, just like the other PAC schools did."
And I would say that's completely fair. That's understandable. On the other side, you're doing the same thing. So it is what it is. Because I mean, like, it's easy, for a Cougar fan or a Big 12 fan or SEC fan to say, "Oh yeah, Oregon State and Washington State should just get all that money because they got screwed," but they're not actually living the reality of not getting the money for their budget
Oh no, I never
stuff,
said
right?
that they should get all the money. I've never once said that.
But a
No,
lot of
I
folks
never.
just say that, "Oh yeah, it's just equitable to do that." It's not equitable to do that. It's
Yeah,
not. Make USC pay for all of it. They're the ones that screwed
I'd be all
everybody.
right with that. You okay with that one, Moen? You like that idea? Make
Yeah, as fine as
USC
the
pay
Big
it?
Ten ain't paying anything. I don't care.
I love it. I love it. All right, I've gone through all the news today. We also talked about the bowl mania. I hope everybody got signed up for that. Do you guys have any other topics you want to discuss?
You know what? I do want to bring up a topic. What do you guys think about, like, this idea of an alliance or a merger between Oregon State, Wazoo, the Big 12, and the ACC? I don't know if you guys have seen that
I think
floating
that's
around.
insanity. I've said it on Twitter. I've said it here. It's unworkable. The
I
Big
think
12
at the
doesn't want to take. They don't want to take those
yeah,
schools that aren't bringing anything in.
at the end of the day, there's going to be four conferences. The ACC will survive.
Because of
What
Notre
it'll
Dame.
look like, who knows?
Right.
Because I mean, if Florida State, Clemson, and UNC buy their way out, that could be upwards of $1.5 billion to be distributed. Um, so there's going to be teams that aren't going to bolt to the Big 12 right away,
Right.
waiting to get that payday.
Yeah.
And they're going to disperse that in increments so people can't use that money to just say, hey, we're out of here too, and we're going to the Big 12. And so I think the ACC will last for at least 2030, 2032, 2034, somewhere in that time range.
On that note, do you see any schools jumping outside of, like, your UNCs, your Florida State, your Clemsons? Like, do you actually see an NC State jumping to the Big 12?
I
To the
Based
think
Big
on,
12?
like,
No,
yeah. You don't see really any ACC schools jump to the Big 12 based on that?
not right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're in no rush either.
Right.
I have said for a while this could go years and years, and eventually things may change where it is feasible to make that move. I wouldn't put. I think 2026 is the next big marker. And I didn't mean to just completely disown the idea of the merger that you brought up, but it just is unworkable to me because look, the Pac-12's gone. The Big 12 already went through their realignment moment. Now it's the ACC's turn, and frankly, there's nobody around. These aren't charities. These conferences are not places for schools to just go and find refuge. They're literally based on the economics, which we've talked about here hundreds of times, and that doesn't necessarily mean everybody gets carried, unfortunately. And I think it sucks. Just like you guys have said, Washington State and Oregon State deserve to be in the. I've wanted them in the Big 12 from the beginning. I just don't. The economics out there. The Big 12 is not going to 24 schools.
No.
It doesn't. It doesn't need to. It doesn't need to get that big. They only need a few schools back east to help the eastern schools for recruiting and not for recruiting, but for scheduling and stuff. I just don't.
Yeah.
I just don't think so.
I'm not sure adding any new school is going to be accretive for the Big 12
It might
anymore.
not be. It might not
I'm
be.
not serious. I'm not even
Yeah.
sure like if adding a Virginia Tech or a Pittsburgh is going to be really accretive. It's hard to
Right.
kind of see that. I mean, like it seems like it should be, but really there's nothing. There's no evidence. The viewership doesn't suggest that, and that's what's driving the finances. So it's like, why would Pittsburgh, if they're pulling in 500,000 like viewers, how are they going to be pulling in 2 million, in the Big 12? That ain't happening. Like, it's hard to see like an ad that just makes no like a ton of financial sense outside of like your Clemson's and your Florida State that the Big 12 doesn't really have access to. So my mind's
Right.
changing on that too. It's not a no-brainer to necessarily 20 teams anymore, like kind of felt like before.
I completely agree with you. I think, especially, that's why I'm not sure the SEC does get any bigger than maybe two schools. I could see the SEC staying at 18. I could see the Big 10 going to 20 and being done. That would leave an opportunity to go to the Big 12 from some of these schools. But as Moen has detailed several times, they're going to get a bunch of money over a period of time for those schools that do end up leaving in their settlements. Is that going to be enough? Do they want to move for the competition? Are they willing to sit in a lesser conference, knowing that their conference might not be in the playoff at the end of every year because it didn't rate? Because that's what we're looking at now. The ACC and the Big 12, unless they have really good teams in a 4-team playoff, they're not going to get notice. Now next year it changes, but even then, those spots are going to be they're going to be squeezed. So I don't know. I know this. 4 years ago, there was more money in sports than in anything else in entertainment. More money than anybody had ever seen was in live sports, professional and college. And now a lot of those sources have dried up. Economy's
Yeah.
different. The world's different.
It's going to be fascinating to look at the TV ratings for the Big 12 next year without your Texas and
I
Oklahoma.
agree. Yeah, I agree.
That's the one thing that might I mean they're going to be lower for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And like looking at the ACC too. I mean, like if the ACC schools like your Miami in the pecking order right now, they're sitting at what, seventh out of like all the Big 12 schools, and like
Oh
in
yeah.
Washington State. I mean,
Yeah.
Miami, I mean, if Florida State leaves, if Clemson leaves, my goodness gracious. I mean, they're in big trouble as far as like, viewership wise and everything. I mean, I don't know when they're ever going to get on TV.
I The ACC, they're gonna be treated, in from a competitive standpoint, they're gonna be treated like a G5 is now.
Yeah, I think so.
Once those schools leave, unless they're able to in some way make themselves better by bringing in maybe Big 12 schools. Maybe they make a play for UCF and West Virginia. I mean, there's anything's possible. In my mind, if they want to keep their viewership numbers up, they bring in Oregon State and Washington State. They travel partner with the California schools,
Yeah.
and that brings that average of numbers up. That would be the simplest solution.
Yeah, I mean, if you do that, you can survive, but like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's survival, but like you're not thriving, right?
I was
And
listening to
like,
Dan Patrick
yeah,
this morning, and he referred to the Big 12 as having passed through the fires. He was describing they had gone through the fires of realignment and come out the other side in the best possible position that they could have hoped to be in, with what happened with the Pac-12. He did not do the same thing for the ACC. He looks at the ACC as one or two schools away from being a G League, and that's saying something.
Yeah, that is, and that's considering with the big boys still in there, your UNCs, your
Right.
Florida States.
Well, Florida State's sitting at home on December 31st. How many people think that's okay?
Not many.
Not many.
But
Not the
Kirk
AE.
Street does, so I mean that's the end all be all.
Well, there's nothing we can do about them, though. They're already going to eat. I don't know why they needed to have that final bite, but whatever. Next year, it'll be what? 4 conferences. It'll be a 5-7.
Mhm.
7. But if they can kill off the ACC as a real power conference in the next 8 months, if that actually happens, that's one more slot that goes to the Big Ten and the SEC for the final tournament.
Yeah, and with the ACC, it's the interesting thing is really okay. So if the ACC survives after Florida State leaves and UNC leaves, they got this pile of money. So you're really sacrificing viewership, future viewership, and brand building for that pot of money, right? And isn't
Right.
that what we're kind of saying here?
Yes.
That's going to be an interesting decision to make too, because like I don't know, I don't see the cash inflow as significant as people think. Like I know that a lot of folks think it's going to be like $500 million or whatever, like a couple 100 million to get out of the ACC and untie your grant of rights. But if there's like a mass exodus, I just don't see that really in practicality actually happening. That's like a best case scenario, your little dream scenario where you're living like on the other side of a rainbow in a pile of money and everything. And I don't think they're not going to get any money. They're going to get some money and stuff, but it's not going to be quite as significant as we're talking about. I think through the courts and everything else that is going to happen, and over the time period of where the legal battle gets drawn out to, I just don't see. I think it's going to be a lot of pressure on those ACC schools to have to make a move before that the cash is realized. We'll see what happens though.
Shonsky has a comment here. He says, remember the Pac-12 fell apart because they didn't have a Gore. Totally different from Florida State leaving. When Florida State leaves, the other teams still have a Gore with the ACC. That's absolutely true. We didn't say anything different. At the end of the day, the ACC is contracted with each individual school and ESPN, not the same way that it is at the Big 12. They negotiated and signed the deal with each individual school, meaning each school has to negotiate their own way out of it. And just because Florida State leaves doesn't mean the conference falls apart. No, but it does lower the value of the conference as a whole, and that's where that's where it gets scary. If you're even a Clemson, it can be real scary because you don't know what that value is going to be, and you're already on the edge. So
Yeah, unbinding yourself from the grant of rights is the legal challenge of the day, right? That's
right,
that's what the trick is. That's what the lawsuits will be. But I do know this in life, and everybody out there knows this too, where there's a will, there's a way. And there is a will right now, a strong will from Florida State and Clemson to get the heck out of the Big Ten and or the ACC, and they will. They will get out of it. And we're just talking about the collateral damage and the money and the lawsuits and everything else. And what I'm saying, just like I said before, I just don't see it in all practicality being nearly as significant as we're all talking about.
I
It just never
think that's
is.
fair.
It never is.
Yeah,
And the math nerds at these schools and stuff are gonna have to do some financial calculations to see your present value, of your future cash inflows to see really what that would be worth in the new G5 level ACC or the Big 12 and trying to make an argument to get in there. So there's a lot of moving parts, and the Big 12 needs to make that decision if schools even can qualify to get in, given what we're
right.
talking about with viewership. Because hey Pitt, you're not as sexy as you think you are. You're really not. Like, hey, Virginia Tech, you're not as sexy as you think you are. And like, I haven't heard that
Well,
from Virginia Tech fans, but the Pitt fans are
it's the
laughable.
it's the education stuff that was the same stuff you heard at the Pac-12. They are better because their education is perceived to be better. Their endowments are bigger. They have some of these other things that doesn't necessarily relate to sports. So yeah, you can be you in your head you think you're the most valuable school in the country, Stanford. Instead, Stanford's playing cross country football games and doing other things because nobody wanted them.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And like, yeah, and again, like the academic part really, As far as like your media values, the finances you're getting from your media partner, it means zip, zero, zilch, and everything. That might be great and stuff for a conference considering to add you and everything because they're factoring in multiple things. But at the end of the day, if your valuation doesn't come in satisfactory, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's what we've learned, and it bears repeating.
No, it's absolutely true. You've been quiet down there, Moen. What do you want to say?
I'm thinking about coming up with a conference Jenga where you just have a conference and we'll go through and we'll pull Florida State, come over here and pull Clemson. See how
Okay.
long it takes. That's my best analogy for it. I think that's what happens. You see it, it just becomes unstable, unstable. Till finally one day somebody pulls and goes, Pitt is super sexy. Close.
You know, Pitt's sexy at a reduced revenue share.
Yeah, I
I'm not
see
sure
Sure.
they're
that
worth
too.
31. So,
Oh my gosh. That's just, it's crazy. I really can't believe we're still talking about this stuff 2 years later. It's just insane.
oh yeah, I mean this is all happening in front of us, and
All right, I'm gonna go. Do you guys ready to shut this thing down tonight?
yeah,
I
let's
Sure.
think
wind
we've
it down.
we've
We'll kick
covered a
this
bunch
pig.
of good news. Moen, why don't you tell everybody what the show is going to be tomorrow night? You and Immaculate.
We're going to speculate on conference realignment mainly. Um, Different things. Everybody loves conference realignment. Come join us. Give us your crazy theories. We won't. No theory
It's
is
too far.
too far for us. Ask Immaculate with his crazy Ivy League
Right.
scenario, the
Right.
IVACC. Um, so yeah, join us. We'll talk about it. We'll talk a little football. We'll have a couple drinks. It'll be a fun time.
I can't wait for it. I'll be at a birthday party, so you guys have fun. Try not to wreck anything while I'm gone, will ya?
We will be playing the Georgia Tech drinking game. So if
Okay, Georgia
Immaculate
Tech
says
drinking game.
Georgia Tech, you drink.
Got a drink.
You,
Get a
what do
drink.
you want to say on our way out here?
It's exciting times, and the bowl game season is coming upon us soon. And just to throw it out there, everybody out there, if you think that you're going to beat Wild Ute in a bowl game challenge, I dare you
Oh,
to
let's
bring it
bring
on.
that up. Let me bring that up again. We'll show everybody
Because
where to go.
yeah, I don't lose these very often and everything. So you know, I'm gonna have to smash you guys. Anyone that dares to jump in the pool, the free pool, I dare you. I dare you. I love the picks this year, so bring it on.
I just posted the link in comments if you guys want to join us. Completely free. There's no password. The other thing is you can just do a search for the Big 12 Mafia Bowl Pick'em, Big 12 Mafia Bowl Pick'em, and you'll find it. It'll pop right up and join the fun. Other than that, guys, I really appreciate everybody being here tonight. It's been a lot of fun. We're covering news as it pops up. Tomorrow night, there will be more, and we're looking forward to that. So if everybody else is good to go, I think we're going to sign out. Everybody have a great night. Stay out of trouble and peace out.
Go Utes.